Welcome to another exciting edition of Plank of the Week, the fastest growing TV show that we do here at Talk Radio TV. It's the only one actually that we do, but it's still going very well. I'm delighted to say that the government have now put new restrictions on us again, so it's going to be an interesting few weeks while we try to find enough people that we can get into the building to actually star in Plank of the Week's panel. Today I've got a newbie with me though, I have to say, Olivia Utley, who is a deputy leader writer at The Sun. Thank you very much indeed, Olivia, for joining us here. Kevin O'Sullivan's back, who doesn't seem to... Have you got a room here in the building here or something? I mean, you seem to be here all the time.
Yeah, I'm camping now.
You do about 15 shows a week for Talk Radio. I'm going to ask you, Olivia, to kick us off with your first nomination. Who have you got for us?
I have gone for Sadiq Khan as my top nomination.
He's a very worthy and very frequently mentioned member of the Plank of the Week
school.
I didn't there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
I feel he's been particularly plankish this week. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure people have seen that photo of him. It's just classic of his posturing, pretending to get a flu jab for a photo opportunity with the cap of the flu jab still on. Just because all he does is take nice photos of himself. That's literally the only thing
he's a virtue signaller. He's an obsessive virtue signaller.
And London's crashing and burning around him. He seems to be keen to introduce lockdown restrictions on the capital faster than the government is. His only plan is to sort of get in there first.
Yeah, he doesn't think the curfew's early enough, does he?
No, he doesn't think the curfew's early enough.
London's not in enough trouble already. Let's lock it down.
Let's do more. Let's do more. And particularly keen to lock down the city, which obviously, if the city, there's a whole ecosystem in the city where the bars and restaurants and lunch bars, etc., and cleaners and offices, they all support each other and they make the city one of the most valuable places in the country to do business. If the city sinks, then the whole country is in serious trouble. But Sadiq Khan seems absolutely determined to lock it down faster than the government.
What he loves to also do is to try and dissuade anyone who's got a vehicle of any kind from travelling anywhere in London. The result of which has meant that there's more people travelling than ever before. He's made these ridiculous kind of low traffic zones, or what they call them, in different parts of London, which have completely ruined. It took me, and I know that people will say, oh, look at him, he's in a car and he's complaining about the traffic. Well, the reason I'm in a car is because I'm going to Sussex to see my kids and my dog, right? It took me 2 hours to get from London Bridge to Lewisham on Friday afternoon. That's about 3 miles. So that's a mile and a half an hour, literally, is the travelling time.
Partly because he's put cycle lanes.
He's also got these ridiculous fences out into the street.
Yeah, which makes every high street look really ugly. Big red and white bollards
so
all
that
the way
people who
down.
are not actually walking around at all can have more space than the cars that actually need more space. It's unbelievable.
What that guy's doing to the great city of London amounts to vandalism on a vast scale. He is vandalising this city. And I can think of no explanation for him doing that and for him calling for a lockdown, which will be ruinous. The only explanation I can think for his approach to London is that he hates this city and he hates the people who live in it. Like the old school socialist that he is. Doesn't like metropolitan elites. People who live in London probably got money, got cars, hate you.
He's got money.
I think he's deliberately...
He's also got a very large Range Rover, which costs about 150,000 quid to buy, because he's got all sorts of, whiz-bang features.
Security, so he doesn't get...
Well, so he says.
Attacked by me.
I mean, or any other normal person, But here's the thing. I mean, what sort of an idiot goes for a photo shoot, a photo sort of opportunity, and pretends to get a jab?
It's absolutely classic.
Why would you do
I've spoken to people who've worked in City Hall and say that he can't plan, he can't think ahead, he can't strategise because he's permanently obsessing about his own public image. So he'll do whatever it takes to get a good photo shoot or to get a good headline, and just doesn't think ahead about what he's, I'll just get this pretend flu jab, or I'll get a good headline about cycling in London, and doesn't think what these extra cycle lanes are going to do to the roads and do to traffic and do to... He just can't prioritise or think ahead.
He's so useless that he's not even any good at virtue signalling. So he thinks that he can stand there in front of the cameras and say, well, we've put all these cycle lanes in because we've got to save the planet. We've got to.
He doesn't work out.
No. And millions of Londoners say, yeah, I'll tell you what, mate, I've got to get to work. And also, you're not letting me do that.
He's actually making the planet more dangerous by making more congestion, creating more exhaust fumes and more pollution. So that's what he's doing.
He's a little fool. He's just a fool.
And that's before we even talk about his record on crime, which
well,
is obviously...
I was going to say on Friday, when that terrible incident, as he called it, happened in Croydon, he called it an incident. Everyone else is calling it the shooting, they're calling it murder, they're calling it an attack on the police. He calls it an incident. And you go, Well, why is it? How is it? An incident is when you run into a cyclist.
Well, you could sort of run into dangerous territory for Sadiq there, because you might have to implicitly criticise Black Lives Matter, and he wouldn't like that. Would
he wouldn't. Certainly would not like
that.
Yeah,
and this guy.
Largely peaceful.
So you were so right, Olivia. He's such a worthy plank of the week. All of this stuff we're talking about, all of his virtue signalling, his obsessive virtue signalling. Look at me getting my flu jab. Artificially, it's geared towards his political career, and he thinks he's heading for the top. No, it's all gone now.
Right.
It's Keir Starmer, mate. You didn't get the job.
No, he missed his opportunity.
You are in a cul-de-sac. It's called the London Mayor.
Isn't there also a similar picture of Sir Keir Starmer, who made the list last week? I don't know whether you're going to make it this week. Is there not a similar picture of him signing something with the top still on the pen?
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So it's another one of these, what is with Labour politicians
what about
fakes?
when he came outside his house with his wife to applaud the NHS?
Oh yeah.
And then was saying to the camera, "You got enough of this, then?"
Right. Although to be fair, his defence of that was that it was about his daughter, because his daughter was apparently had gone to the other side of the road because they didn't want her in the shot. So in a very bizarre moment of reflection, I will defend Sir Keir Starmer.
If that's his defence, then I don't accept it.
Sadiq Khan, who apparently always finds for all the photo shoots, which he loves, small people to stand around because he's really short and he doesn't like to look short on camera. So you'll notice he's always surrounded by women.
Right. He walked past me once. I think he's got a female security detail, because I don't know whether he thinks he's like, London's answer to Muammar Gaddafi. Remember, he used to have all those female bodyguards, right? So he walked past me as I was standing. I don't think he recognised me, because he constantly refuses to come on my show. We've asked him about 25 times.
I wonder why.
Doesn't even answer now, and he's incredibly small.
Did you pat him on the head as he walked by?
Well, I could have done. I mean, literally. He's
a tiny little guy.
He's tiny. I mean, he's up to about my elbow, and I'm not particularly tall.
And it's not fair to criticise him for being tiny, but let's do that.
No, it's
well, listen, nobody said Plank of the Week was ever a fair show.
Yeah, good.
So tell us who your first one is.
My first one is Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker. So we are recording a day before the coronavirus law comes before the House of Commons again.
Yes.
The coronavirus law they passed 6 months ago to allow Boris and Matt and his cabinet, his coronaphobic cabinet.
Who knew we gave them free reign?
Yeah,
to tell us what decibel levels
to rule us by decree and diktat, because it's an emergency. It's a crisis. So they need this to be renewed every 6 months. Now, Parliament, or the House of Commons, MPs, are minded to say yes. We will allow you to carry on because we accept there's something.
Because it's an emergency.
Yeah, it's an emergency. But Sir Graham Brady, the leader of the 1922 committee, the right-wing backbench Tory organisation, very influential, has said no, because this will allow you, Boris, and you, Matt, to by diktat order us into another lockdown.
Yeah.
We will not accept that. If you want another lockdown, then the Parliament must scrutinise and must vote on it.
And how about you present some evidence?
That's parliamentary democracy.
How about present some evidence as well?
Parliamentary democracy. A debate. If our Parliament votes on it, that's democracy. If we are made to do this by decree, that's not democracy. So Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, has indicated that he won't allow Sir Graham Brady's amendment because it goes against the bureaucratic rules of Parliament. And in fact, that the only thing MPs can do to block the coronavirus law again is to vote against it. So it's a yes or no thing. Now, I think Graham Brady sod the bureaucratic rules. Graham Brady's amendment is sensible and in defence of democracy and freedom and should be allowed. And we do not want another little Hitler sitting in that Speaker's chair influencing the way common sense should progress. And I did not appreciate his early indications that he won't allow that. We don't know what will happen in that vote yet because we're recording before that. But if that amendment is not allowed, I think it's a dark day.
Absolutely, and it's the principle of the thing that matters so much, I think. Like, as you say, even if the Commons does seem quite likely to vote for the measures anyway. But we've still got to have that vote, because if we don't, then what? We give the government license to do this whenever it feels that it's an emergency. This time, yes, some people feel like it's an emergency, some people don't. Next time, it might be something which, you know, a Jeremy Corbyn-led, for example, government considers an emergency. The rest of the population doesn't consider it an emergency.
Well, like shutting down the Sun or something. We just shut down the Sun because it's an emergency. You can't publish it anymore because we don't like it. But this is the thing. If it wasn't for David Davis, by the way, we wouldn't even be having this vote, because it was he who managed to get them to put a 6-monthly stipend on at the end. Otherwise, it would have been a year. And what we found out this week was that, like I was saying about the decibels, they've suddenly introduced this stuff about how much noise you can listen to your music on, you know, whether or not you've actually got to be allowed outside if you're told to quarantine, more punishments if you do something wrong, you know, asking people to snitch on their neighbours. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And what this government are terrified of, what Boris, Matt and the coronaphobic cabinet are petrified of, is there are more and more MPs who are questioning their narrative and are saying, well, you keep saying we're in the grip of this awful health crisis, but if you look at the statistics, we're not in the grip of an awful health crisis. It's concerning, it's something we should be careful about, but should we be slapping down all our freedoms? Should we be stopping the economy? Should we be closing the NHS to anyone who hasn't got COVID? The answer to all this is absolutely not. And they're terrified, Boris and Matt, that MPs may all gather together and stop them doing this. Actually, Boris and Matt and Lindsay Hoyle should allow this amendment because it's sensible, because otherwise, in the future, all of Parliament will gang up and they'll take their precious coronavirus law away from them, and then they won't be able to rule by decree.
No, exactly. And also, the one thing we know about it all is that whatever measure they seem to bring in, it doesn't actually work. Because every time they stop telling people not to hide out in their homes, and every time people go out, the infection rate goes up. Well, who would have guessed that? You know, what's the big surprise?
Lockdowns don't work. What lockdowns do is they postpone. So if we go into another lockdown, it will just ruin the country. And then when we come out of it, guess what? There'll be a second spike. There'll be spikes.
I think the more rules that are imposed, the more people think that anything that isn't within these very specific rules is allowed. So instead of what's happening in Sweden, where the government gives advice and expects people to be sensible and use their common sense, and they do because they feel like they've been given responsibilities and they use those responsibilities wisely, here we've got these very specific rules, and people are fine. They'll stick to the letter of the rules so that they don't get slapped with a whopping rate fine. Exactly. But they won't stick to the spirit of the rules because they don't believe in them and they don't care. So that's why you've got...
Somebody said to me the other day, you actually, you know, if you go into a shop without a mask on, I think you get fined 100 quid, right? You don't get fined 100 quid if you shoplift, right? So if you go in and actually steal something, as long as you're wearing a mask, you've got less chance of actually being punished than if you just walk in without a mask on.
If you're a robber and you go into a shop and you go, this is a stick-up, and you're wearing a mask, and the shopkeeper goes, well, how do I know you're not just obeying the coronavirus rules?
Unbelievable. There's so much madness going on. I'm going to stay with this theme. My first nomination is the Nhs App. Right, the track and trace app that doesn't actually track and trace, because not only does it not track and trace, but basically you can switch it off even though you've downloaded it so that it doesn't track. You can switch off the Bluetooth, which means it's ineffective if you're sitting in a room with other people. And nobody really seems to understand what happens if you get contacted, because if you did get contacted by an anonymous text message from the NHS which says you have been in contact with someone with COVID, unfortunately it also can't put into the app whether or not you've got COVID if you had a positive test done outside of the use of the app. So apart from that, it's going really well.
But you know,
what's the point?
Yeah, the thing about this NHS app, which did you notice on Saturday, every national newspaper had massive
massive
wraparound advert instead of the front pages. So they put a lot of money and effort into getting everyone to get it. And then of course Matt Hancock, little Matt,
Matty,
the health commissar.
No laughing.
The health.
He's very serious, Matt, isn't he? You never see him smiling at all.
Big health chief Matt.
Right.
He left it about 2 days to say, it's brilliant the way everyone's cooperating. 10 million people have downloaded this app. Thank you, the population of Great Britain for cooperating. Oh, so that means 57 million people didn't download it then.
Yes.
What about that?
And also, if you haven't got a phone which is if you've got a phone that's older than, say, an iPhone 5, it doesn't work. If you've got a phone which is not a smartphone, it doesn't work.
Which you're most likely to have if you're quite old and actually at
Yeah,
risk of
I
the
mean,
virus.
you know, guess what, guys?
It's great for people like me.
Yeah.
It's not friendly to old people who are the most at risk.
Don't worry, I've got
Thanks,
iOS
guys.
14 and I'm 25. I can get the app, and thereby putting myself at risk. Also, I would have very little confidence in them getting it right. You know, but also this is my point: is when if I was to get I haven't downloaded the app, so if I was to get a text message saying that I had to self-isolate, how does it know who I am for a start? Right? It has my number, but does it know that that I am linked to that particular telephone? In which case, if they don't know, then how can they make me stay at home?
Also, I've had a few instances where when London's packed with people in the pubs, I've been to sort of 3 or 4 pubs before I found a pub which is empty enough for me to get a seat in.
Right.
And you have to register your name and number on the door.
Right.
So I'm just going around putting my number down in all these places which I haven't even been into.
Right.
See, there's a good point.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that
Other people have said as well, if you do register that you've gone into a place, it doesn't actually register when you've left.
no, sure.
So it doesn't know.
So you could be there for an hour. And,
And,
then someone,
and of the 57 million people who haven't downloaded it, the reason they're not downloading it is, I think, because of my point. They're questioning the narrative.
Yeah.
They're questioning, look, if it was a health crisis, a real health crisis, and thousands of people were dying every day, I think he'd have a lot more than 10 million sign up for this.
Yeah.
We'd all want to help in those circumstances. What I think millions of people do not accept is the government's premise that this is a genuine health crisis and a threat to millions of us. It isn't.
No.
So therefore people are not going to play games.
Also, the difficult problem for the government now is that people have taken against them because of some of the things they've said have turned out not to be true. And if once you start to not trust what the government's saying, you don't trust anything they say. And that's where we are.
And the app, I mean, the comms around the app has been absolutely terrible. There was that time a few months ago where the government refused to take help from Apple and Google, because they're private companies, in developing the app. So it got the NHS to develop the app itself, which just seemed absolutely insane. And then it took months to work and it didn't work. So, well, in my head, when the app came out, I just thought, oh, what is this? Is that buggy thing they were talking about months ago? Or is that there's also an app where you can register your symptoms every day, which is completely different. It's very difficult to know what this app is and how it differs from anything that's been done before.
Well, I mean, when they started, when they did the trial in the Isle of Wight, you know, the land that time forgot, it's a great place to start, you know.
It's off the coast of England.
It was going to be, you know, the greatest app of all time. You know, it was going to be the most fantastic piece of scientific data. It's going to change everything. A game changer is the word they like to use. Going to be a game changer, right? When by the time old Hancock gets around to announcing it, he's like, well, it's one of a series of measures. You know, it's part of our program. So it's no longer the answer. It's not even part of the answer. It's just sort of a bit of the answer.
Isn't that the one that they discovered subsequently didn't work on the iPhone?
Yes. But that's the other thing. I don't know how he knows that there's 10 million people, because we got the figure, I think, on Saturday that 1 million people had downloaded it on Android phones, but Apple wouldn't give them the figure to say how many people, because it was against their data protection rules,
competition.
Right? But I mean, God forbid that you know, Apple or anybody else might be actually data harvesting everything that you do on your phone anyway. But if they're not, they bloody well are now. You know what I mean? So what's your second one, Olivia?
My second one is Nicola Sturgeon.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
She doesn't make it onto the list often enough, in my view.
No, let's get her on as
let's
much
get
as
her on
possible,
there.
I think. Yeah. I mean, the student fiasco in Scotland is completely insane. She actively encouraged, along with Scottish universities, students to go onto campus at the beginning of this year. They were told that they'd have blended learning, which is a mixture of lectures in lecture halls and
I don't like the sound of that at all.
and lectures online. And then when they got there, I read a piece by a student at Glasgow University saying she was actively encouraged to go to as many freshers' fairs and early lectures as possible. And then, shock, an outbreak happens in the biggest halls in Glasgow University. So then everything goes online immediately within a week, so students shouldn't have had to go back to campus in the first place. They should have just been left at home. And then her answer is to lock everyone down in their buildings. Students in Scotland, first years, are 17 because of the way their system works. They're not even legal adults, shut in rooms with people they've never met before, and not knowing whether they can go home for their families at Christmas, etc., etc. And she managed to announce all of these new rules just after Holyrood had left Parliament for some sort of recess. So there's no scrutiny at all. No one gets to ask any questions. And she's
But
just
she
sort of
actually
letting
does
the
run
situation-
Scotland like some kind of mad president, doesn't she? I mean, she's like the guy that runs
she's got-
Belarus. I mean, there's no kind
She's
of
got total power.
there's no room for
She's
any
got
kind of
total
criticism
power.
of the First Minister.
Yeah.
No,
you know.
and then you've got all the sort of cybernets. I shouldn't be saying this because they'll have a go at me.
They will.
But
Yeah, but I mean, you know, they're always out there. You just have to kind of, you know, blow a whistle and suddenly they all come running towards you.
yeah, you say any sort of criticism of the Scottish government, and they won't
But
allow
you know
any
what's interesting though? I mean,
criticism
I
saying
obviously used to work up there, so there's a lot of people I know and I still talk to, and many people who were in support of independence and of Nicola Sturgeon are starting to move away now because
really?
they're going,
I
do you
don't
know
think
what?
she'd necessarily win an
Well, I don't
independence
think
vote.
she necessarily would either, but she's also become a very divisive figure where some people would always go, you know, I mean, the media down here are absolutely in love with her. They're always
Yes.
going, oh, if only we had Nicola Sturgeon. She's so good. Look how great it is. Well, you're not allowed to play any music. I mean, forget about how loud it is, right, which is the new rule down here. In Scotland, no music at all.
No.
So you can't actually go into
Well,
a
not
bar.
even bagpipes.
No bagpipes,
Oh.
nothing.
And it's
No.
not even
see, that's a
working.
good
I mean,
thing.
their death rate has
Yeah.
been just as high as ours. They didn't get PPE when we didn't get PPE.
Their care home
Everything's
figures
just,
are
their care home
terrible.
figures are awful because they were actually admitting people back into care homes after they'd had positive COVID tests. At least we didn't. I mean, it's terrible, but at least we didn't know that they were COVID positive.
Right.
Scottish, they did in Scotland. They were
Right.
actively releasing people into back into care homes from hospitals, and yet she's had this good pandemic, which is
Yeah.
bizarre.
Well, has she?
Well, I
Apparently
mean,
so.
I think it must
everyone-
emanate from her own PR department.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I don't think anybody up there actually believes that. Even those who still support her can see that, you know, there are holes in the old emperor's new clothes.
Yeah,
I mean.
and also, you've got to hand it to the Scottish kids in Scottish universities. If they manage to get through Nicola's Scottish education system and make it to university, that's a real credit to them because she's completely wrecked
Yeah.
education
She didn't
up
end
there.
up lying
By
on the
the way,
streets and
also
injected themselves with temazepam.
her crackdown. She loves banning things, old Nicola. So she's banned, you know, alcohol sales above a certain amount. You know, put that big tariff on booze.
Yeah, minimum pricing.
And so the price of alcohol has soared, and that's stopped people drinking. So the net result of it is heroin addiction is back on in Scotland and rocketing.
They've got the worst drug death rate in Europe.
But
right?
it went
And
away
it's all
until
because-
she bought
But
the
it's
high
nothing to do with
tariff
her.
on
I mean, it's the same
alcohol.
with her policy
She's
of
useless.
not having student fees has ended up in only rich kids in Scotland going to university.
She's useless.
Yeah.
She's
Just every
useless.
single policy that she comes up with seems to horribly backfire.
She's just
I know,
useless.
absolutely true. So very good plank, that one. What's your second one, Kevin?
It is Andy Burnham, the mayor of Manchester. Who seems to get his oar in all the time. I mean, he acts like he's a sort of a senior shadow cabinet member. So the BBC in particular love to
They
get him
do
on
love
screen.
it, don't they?
So he's like this kind of constant critic of everything the government does. Don't decry that. This government needs more critics, not fewer. But the reason I've chosen him is because this mad 10 p.m. closing of the pubs and the restaurants decree that is ruining lives, ruining businesses, ruining the hospitality trade. I got an Indian takeaway last night from my local guy who's really worked hard to get through this crisis. And I went in, I said, how's business? He said, oh, well, actually, we were really fighting back. We've done all right. But then they brought this 10 p.m. thing. He said, that might be it for us. So lots and lots
Well,
of
this
pubs.
is it. Restaurants are really badly affected by it.
It's a
more so than pubs.
it's a senseless, pointless rule. We
people
know
to gather on the streets and
Yeah,
on the
and we
tubes.
know why it was brought in. It's because Rishi Sunak, because Boris wanted a full lockdown, and Rishi Sunak said, if you do that, I'll quit. And so the compromise was this senseless, random 10 p.m. curfew on pubs. Now that must be criticised, and they should get rid of it. It's mad. And a restriction not only on business but on our freedom, our basic freedoms. And you know, I'm so concerned about that, and I know millions of others. So I'm all for criticising that. Andy Burnham's response was, what we need to do, because as you say, Olivia, one of the problems with the 10 p.m. curfew, apart from restricting our freedoms and ruining businesses, is that people come spilling out of the pubs at 10 p.m. With a load of cans they bought earlier and bottles, and they just get pissed on the streets.
Well, that was pictures from Liverpool this week, wasn't there? Of that?
So Andy Burnham's response, that is a problem, I get that. But Andy Burnham's response is what we need to do is bring in a 9 p.m. curfew on off licences.
Right.
So to ban the sale of alcohol at off licence after 9 p.m.
Start drinking earlier and earlier.
Well, it'll just mean people will go to the offies a bit earlier. As you say, they'll start drinking earlier on the streets. And what I hate about this is symptomatic of the swirling vortex of insanity that this country seems to be disappearing into, that Andy Burnham's idea to alleviate a crazy and draconian rule, the 10 p.m. curfew, is another crazy and draconian rule, the 9 p.m. off-licence curfew.
But do you ever wonder why it is that it's only this country that apparently has a problem with this drinking thing? Right? I mean, why is it that bringing in a curfew for you to stop drinking is a massive assault on your civil liberties? I mean, you know, I'm in agreement with you largely about all of this, but you know, I see in Belfast. Is in Belfast they've now made it 11 o'clock, right?
But we like to drink.
Well, we do like to drink, but you know, I can drink at home. I don't have to go to a pub if I want to have a drink. And I mean, the fact that there is a curfew at 10 o'clock is not going to stop me. If I decide I'm going to have another bottle of red wine when I get home, I'm going to do it. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to have Andy Burnham standing over me going, you can't have any more to drink.
What Andy Burnham should be like is the mayor of Marseille who told Macron, yeah, thanks very much for your 10 p.m. curfew, we're not doing it.
Yeah, well, so we've now got, I don't know what they do in Wales, because I can never work out what that bloke Mark Drakeford is up to. I have no idea what he does. But they've now, so in Northern Ireland now it's 11 o'clock. In England it's 10 o'clock. I think it's 10 o'clock in Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and also the idea that you're going to stop the Scots drinking is a joke, isn't it?
But wasn't it? Yeah, I know when you ask about us and booze, it's just part of the British way. It's what I love about it.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking the question. It's not
Arlene Foster actually made it to my short list of planks of the week. Didn't actually make it. But why, after seeing the complete carnage in England, after introducing the 10 p.m. lockdown, you know, you talk about the scenes from Liverpool. I also saw people in the streets of York, you know, thronging in the streets, all singing Mr. Brightside. Look, great, amazing party on the streets of York.
They're not supposed to be singing.
No, that's banned.
That's banned.
But, you know, they see that going on for a week and think, you know what, that seems like a great idea. We'll introduce it too.
I was in Soho on Friday night, and we were in a restaurant, and the Groucho Club. I'm a man of the people, and we got thrown out at 10 p.m.
in a private club.
Oh yeah, that was everywhere.
That's ridiculous.
Everywhere. So we had to bolt our food and get the hell out. So we went onto the streets of Soho, where there were all these people sort of milling around, looking a bit confused, but also because don't forget this was only one day into the 10 p.m. First time it happened at a weekend. And so there's a lot of people swigging beer and things on the street. And then in a sort of like a shop doorway, you know, were these sort of, clearly these sort of terribly posh people sitting there. And they all had cut glasses and a bottle of Veuve Clicquot champagne. They were just sitting there drinking it. And you think, why? There is a vignette of modern Britain.
Yeah.
So my point about Andy Burnham is, in some ways, it's unfair to pick on him, but what the hell? As you say, Plank is not here to be fair. He's symptomatic. These politicians, they just rules, diktats. I'm going to tell you what to do. Tell you what. Oh, I don't like that rule. I've got another rule to counteract that rule.
People just won't stick to the spirit of the rules, even if they do stick to the letter of the rules. They'll just feel annoyed.
Yeah, leave us alone, you.
Right. Well, you say that, but my second nomination actually goes back to the students, because you know, I was appalled this week, as you guys were, to see the fact that they were all told they couldn't go anywhere. But why the hell did they just sit there? You know, I mean, when I was a student, we were constantly sort of rowing with the administration. We used to occupy the administration's offices. You know, we used to go on marches. We certainly didn't do what we were told. You know, if they told you to, you know, you couldn't do something, you immediately then did it. And I was amazed at watching these ridiculous kind of signs being put up. Help! You know, just walk out the door, man. Just get out. What are you doing? What's wrong with you?
By 10 p.m.
Then I see somebody posted a picture of the fire exits all being padlocked up, which doesn't seem like a great idea, you know, if you're the, you know, the people running the place. But it just seems to me that we've now got a generation of people. And this is reflected, I suppose, in the majority of so-called opinion polls as well. There are these people who like being told what to do. And immediately, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm alone here, but when I'm told to do something, my immediate reaction is not to do it. These people's immediate reaction is to do it, right? But we're not being let out.
Mine is too. I'm thinking Nhs Health app.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, they had an interview with this girl in Glasgow, funnily enough, who they went gleefully to because she'd been told to self-isolate in her dorm room because she had coronavirus. You've never seen anybody look healthier in your life. She was so happy. She was laughing. Oh, yes, I've got the coronavirus. And there was nothing wrong with her. She was absolutely fine, you know. And you think, well, maybe that should be a bit of an indication that it's probably not that much of a killer disease.
I quite like the kid who put a sign in his dorm window saying "Bring drink."
There was one that said "Bring weed," which was even funnier. You know, I mean, that at least got some marks from me.
I think you're being a bit harsh on students. I think they're making a big fuss about the rules loudly and then actually secretly just doing basically whatever they want.
You're right,
I was talking to a friend
Olivia,
whose younger brother's
Well, I
just
hope so.
started at Exeter, and she said that there's how ridiculous that there's only one pub where students at Exeter are allowed to go, one huge pub. So they're all obviously flocking there, and there are these enormous queues to get in. But the motto at Exeter University is 4 p.m.'s the new 9 p.m.
Right.
And they all just get in, and it's like a race to get to the tables. There are these great
Well, I'm
tables that
very
you
glad
get
to
at
hear
like
that,
rush
because
hour.
I would be seriously concerned if the young of this country were actually that easily persuaded to
Pathetic,
do
yeah,
what
I
the government
know.
told them. Because, I mean, if you're not going to be a rebel when you're 19, you know, what the hell's going on? But I'm still going to keep them on there, though, because I'm going to take your advice on board, but I'm not necessarily going to change my view.
I do think, to use that cliche, that a lot of them are dreadful snowflakes. You know, that they are the people who should be least afraid of this. I don't think anyone should be that afraid of the coronavirus. A lot of old people
also, if you've
are furious about being,
if you've got
elderly, called vulnerable.
Well, if you've got elderly relatives, I mean, my daughter went to visit my mother, who's 96. She's in America, right? She was coming from Dubai. I mean, she was at airports all over the world. She flew into Washington, D.C. Because she's American, there was no problem, no testing required. But to go to Connecticut, where my mother was, she had to take a test.
Yeah, sure.
But she also was sensible, you know, and she went to see my mother, who has since been in and out of hospital because she had a fall. She's been tested, she hasn't had it.
Yep.
But you can just be sensible if you've got, you know, an old relative that is vulnerable, and you don't go and give them a hug. You know, you can go and talk to them. You can maybe even sit in the same space outside. You can do. There's lots of things you can do. You know, going to university where people have got coronavirus is not going to kill your granny.
It's the language, though. It's the language. That's the point. This is all part of what the government are doing to us. So the people are called vulnerable. You're vulnerable to getting this disease. I don't think old people should even be that concerned, because they're sensible people. They can look after themselves. A lot of them are so insulted that they're being treated like children.
But they should be able to choose. If you're 96, you might only have a couple of years left.
Yeah, exactly.
Use them how you want.
Yeah, exactly. But to go back to the students, these are the last people in the world who should give a damn about it. Even if they get it, they probably won't ever know. It's ridiculous.
The Glasgow student I was talking about, unless somebody had told her she had it, she wouldn't have known there was anything wrong with it.
Exactly.
So number 3 for you, Olivia.
Number 3 is Owen Jones.
Excellent.
Yeah.
He's not been on for a while, actually.
No, he. The latest thing that he's done is made a complaint about I think it was Hackney Police Force.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Tweeted a picture of the Union Jack with 3 thin lines in it, a blue one, a red one and a green one, which is the flag of the emergency services, and the blue line represents the police. And Hackney Police Force was praising Matt Ratner and expressing condolences to his family, and put this picture underneath it. And Owen Jones tweeted, I'll see if I can remember it exactly, saying the killing of Matt Ratner is horrible, and I'm not surprised that policemen are very upset about it. But why would you ever put a but in a tweet? You know,
about
giving your condolences to a dead police officer. But this is a far-right meme.
That's right.
What?
That's right.
Why?
Call it a far-right meme. I didn't really understand it.
Well,
I looked into it. It's not
to
a
be
far-right
upset
meme.
about the brutal killing of a colleague is a far-right meme.
Well, I think he was referring to the actual flag.
This picture,
because it's basically a Union flag, but it's got a thin blue line running through it. I didn't realise there were other colours as well. But it's something that they've used in America for a long time so no doubt he was picked it up from there, because it's probably used by people who maybe support
probably,
Donald Trump.
But this is classic sort of swallowing the Americanisation. Just
exactly.
accepting that everything in America is the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. That symbol is used quite often. I was looking into it a bit, and it's got a line for each of the emergency services, and people quite often use it you know, that it's the flag of the emergency services apparently,
right.
and they use it when something terrible happens, and it's a way to express respect and show condolences. And you know, Hackney Police Force, even if it's been used in America perhaps in an unsavoury way, but clearly Hackney Police Force wasn't driving at that at all. It was clearly not. So, and anyway, why would you ever put "but" in a tweet?
But this is the way that his mind works. Unfortunately, I mean, he's since deleted it, I think, didn't he?
He has,
because I never see.
It was a bit of a mistake.
Because it was an error. I sadly, or in some ways, you might say happily, I don't see his tweets because he blocked me years ago, Owen Jones. I can't remember why, but I think I asked him a question that he didn't like. So therefore, no debate was allowed about that particular
Why are
subject.
you such a campaigner?
Something like that, yeah. But he's an odious character, isn't he? I mean, the great thing as well was he was on one of these Zoom TV interviews the other day, and he's got this lavish study, you know, he's sitting there, these books behind him, you know, classic champagne socialist, you know.
Gold
he's
ingots
paid a load of money by the Guardian to write the piffle that he
rubbish.
produces, right? He's also paid by some think tank, you know. And he's literally an idiot. I mean, he has got about the intellectual capacity of a gnat. Well, and the fact that he has a slight northern accent, the fact that he's gay, and the fact that he is in some way a lefty, gives him this kind of, you know, vaunted status. You know, well, he must be brilliant.
Going back to that,
he must be brilliant.
It
is.
Going back to that tweet, that very unwise, ill-advised tweet that he subsequently deleted.
What did you call him?
Sorry,
I think I called him an ill-advised tweet there for a second.
He's an ill-advised tweet. He uses that term, you see, what they always do, far right, far right.
Oh, yeah.
What they mean by far right is right.
Yeah.
They say anyone who is right of centre to Owen Jones is far right.
Yeah.
And therefore there's this implicit insult in there, this implicit...
Well, he had a set to,
you know, and
Matt
what
Kelly.
He is far left. He's a left-wing extremist.
Yeah.
So he's just as dangerous as the real far right. But what he would take your average Conservative MP or somebody like me or Mike or yourself, and he would call us far right, far right.
He conflates anyone Conservative in the UK with
being,
Republicans in America.
Being in the EDL or something.
Kettle of fish. Like, you know, he thinks that David Cameron and Donald Trump are about the same thing.
Well, he's not very keen on Keir Starmer, is he? I mean, you know, this is the guy who was championing the cause of the likes of Ash Sarkar and Jeremy Corbyn. He had a set to with Matt Kelly once, who's the editor of the New European, now the publisher of it, I think. Ex-colleague of ours from the Mirror. And Matt's pretty left-wing, actually, as it happens, and so is the New European. I mean, it's a Ramona special, you know. But they had a cartoon on the cover of a bunch of different things one week, and one of them was Owen Jones wiping, you know, drying his eyes or in tears, you know. He accused them of using a homosexual, homophobic trope against him, making out that I'm crying because I'm gay. And he's like, no, we've just done that because you spend quite a lot of time complaining about stuff, and that's how the caricature came about. It's got nothing to do with, you know, homophobia, but they're always looking for this stuff, these guys. They're constantly looking for reasons. Looking for reasons to either criticise the likes of us for being horrible and nasty, because, of course, only, you know, the left wing can be compassionate.
Although that turns out that's not the case, according to Grayson Perry, is it?
Some of the most horrible people you've ever met in your life are these horrible lefties.
Well, they are horrible. Mostly they are horrible. As Grayson Perry said, that he's always found that the people from the right are much nicer human beings than people from the left. And you only got to think of Owen Jones and Jeremy Corbyn, and you realise that that's right.
It's incredible stuff. Very good nomination, though. Your third one?
Prince William.
Yeah.
You know, I've had to go all the other members of the royal family, so let's go for Prince William.
What's he done?
I'll tell you what he's done. He's climbed on this infuriating royal bandwagon that his father's such a bore about. Climate change, got to save the planet, save the world, save the world.
Where's my private helicopter?
You know, everybody, it's an emergency. We're not doing enough. We've got to make it a better place for our children. And the reason the royal family do this is because it's safe ground. It's the only area.
Well, it's another thing you can't disagree with.
So his crazy dad his crazy dad came out about a week ago with another of his.
I like that. His crazy dad. He's starting to sound a bit like Trump now. Crazy Joe Biden.
Well, his dad is crazy. You know, he's been banging on about this for
talking
ages.
to flowers for too long.
And now Prince William has got a documentary coming out on the telly.
Has he?
Yeah, with David Attenborough and everything about saving the planet.
Oh, yeah, I saw something about this.
And him and Kate went around the world. For example, when they're in Pakistan, on their rather successful tour, they took the trouble to nip up to the Himalayas to have themselves filmed by melting glaciers as well, and that was all for this film that they're going to make. So he's now climbed on this bandwagon, is lecturing ordinary people about stop everything. This is the emergency. It's not actually the most important thing in the world, but it's the only thing the royal family can talk about safely without being controversial. If you see what I mean, because no one's going to argue with you when you go, "Oh, wouldn't it be good if we saved the planet?" No, I think it'd be great if we
Prince
destroyed
Andrew,
it.
to be fair, is doing his bit for Prince Andrew's doing his bit for the environment by not going anywhere at all.
Well, he's taking less private jets or helicopter.
No more visits to Pedo Island for him.
Yeah, no more taxpayer-funded helicopter trips to Northern Ireland to watch the British Open golf.
No.
But anyway, so he said, I don't want to look into George's eyes when he's old and he'll say to me, "Did you do enough?" He said, "My grandfather did a lot. My father's still doing a lot." It's like,
his grandfather?
Prince Philip. He wasn't a massive campaigner.
Mind you, was he not chairman of the World Wildlife Fund?
While killing as many animals as he possibly could with a gun.
Shooting as many grouse.
Yeah, well, William's the bloody same.
Yeah.
These people and Charlie, they're going to let's save the planet, so worried about the environment.
Just go and get some salmon out of the river.
Give them a gun and a set of animals to shoot, and that lot are never happier. They love killing animals for fun. So I don't accept their philanthropy, their natural philanthropy, and I'm sick and tired of these people of great privilege who think that it's easy to throw away everything else in your life and concentrate on saving the planet. Actually, all of us normal citizens, we don't want the planet to die. We worry about global warming.
You're killing it, though.
We worry about climate change. We accept it's going on, but we haven't got time. We haven't got time to climb aboard your virtue signalling boat and go around going, "Let's save the planet above everything else." He's saying, "It's an emergency. We are not doing enough." No. Go back to your palace and shut up.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, also people will say to me, and by the way, can I just interject here with we all care about it. I don't care about it, right? No. I do not give a stuff about the environment. I will do all the things that I can if it's within my power, but I'm not being told by Michael Gove to throw away my wood-burning stove, because I rather like it in the wintertime in Sussex. I drive a very well put together diesel car, which is brand new, which is as clean can be. It's probably cleaner than an electric car, actually. But people say, "But don't you want to be able to leave your children a better world?" To which I say, no, I don't actually, because they're going to have to deal with problems in life. There's no point in pretending that I can save their childhood or give them the greatest start in life by walking everywhere. They can get lost.
I'm not going back. I'm not going back to medieval horse and cart times to save the world.
No, I'm not going to eat raw fish.
I accept global warming is going on. I'm sceptical about how much humanity is causing that. And by the way, Prince William and his dad, his infernal dad, lecturing us about this stuff here in Great Britain. Great Britain produces 2% of the world's air pollution. Also, why do we have to carry all the burden?
We also pay one of the highest rates of tax of anybody in any country in the world when we get on an aeroplane, right?
We do more than anyone else.
We pay green tax to our energy companies, right? We do all that. But also, at the end of the day, again, like the politicians, these people have no grip on reality. Prince William has no idea what my life is like.
It's hard to get angry with Prince William when Prince Harry's around.
Well, funnily enough, you should say that, because I've got Harry and Meghan. I'm afraid I've got Harry and Meghan in once again. Meghan was in last week on her own. This week they're both in.
She's got a little help from her little friend.
Because I thought Donald Trump was magnificent. Last week when he talks about Harry. I'm going to wish him a lot of luck. He's going to need it. It's brilliant. But she now has announced, now they did this deal with Netflix, right, where we're told they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not certain that they will. But now, rather than the original plan, which was to sort of be producers and to be, the makers of woke docudramas about why we have to save the planet and why we have to do some great things and look after each other and build communities of compassion and all that. It now turns out they're just going to turn into another version of the Kardashians, right? They're going to have a real-life soap opera, a reality show, which is going to be like the Osbournes, except really boring, because you can imagine how boring their lives are.
Well, they're denying this, but I don't believe them. And they also
deny everything.
They deny everything.
Oh no, we're moving to Canada.
We didn't speak to that bloke about the book. Now
they denied that, and then the guy, they put it in the foreword of the book that we spoke to them. So we know they're not necessarily. They tend to be economical with the truth. The point about this, Mike, is that apparently the story is that when they pitched themselves to Netflix for this $112 million deal to make films, Netflix people, they're not stupid. They weren't too keen on Woko Ono and her
That's
husband
a great name for
making all these woke things about positivity and making the world a better place.
Nothing about
but apparently Meghan's no fool. She went in with this video they've already made of themselves around the palace.
Yeah.
Apparently they were filming themselves in the run-up to their defection to America all the time. They've got all this video footage
Instagram
of her
special
talking to the Queen, and they went, we can make this. Netflix goes, now we're talking.
Now
we're talking.
Well, this is it. I mean, there is a great thirst out there for these shows. I mean, Will Smith's wife, I don't know if you've ever seen Will Smith's wife's show that she does on Facebook. I can't remember her name, but they basically Mrs. Smith, thank you very much for the showbiz insight. She sits at her kitchen table, usually with her daughter, sometimes with her son, sometimes with her husband. She confessed on this show. It's on Facebook only, but it gets millions and millions of views, and they're making a fortune out of it. She confessed live on the on the kitchen table that she had an affair on Will Smith, which he didn't know about.
You left her.
No. And then they had this. I mean, but people love all this stuff. But but you've got to be doing that kind of thing. And I mean, with the Osbournes, I mean, Ozzy was great because Ozzy's mad, and everything that Ozzy Osbourne does, you kind of going, is he going to even make it to the end of the show? Is he going to fall down the stairs? Is he going to get run over himself?
Yeah.
So maybe with Harry and Meghan,
but Harry and Meghan are too boring. Is what I'm saying.
Maybe they could have the kind of key moment would be Meghan saying, Harry, for the last 3-4 years, and we got married, and now we came to. I've been taking you for one long, great big ride.
Or maybe teaching Harry how to do simple mathematics or something like that, because he's not that bright. I mean, you could have some fun with that, I suppose.
He's as dim as a
I really can't see, and I know that people say, just leave him alone. Don't give them the publicity, but they've been on Plank of the Week, I would think, more or less every single week that we've been going since the beginning of this year.
They are a pair of
They are the ultimate. I mean, one thing I suppose we should say in their defence is that it's great that they're here because they do make us laugh. They keep us entertained. Exactly. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have much to laugh at.
That's what I would say to Charlie Ray.
Tone deaf. I mean, all of during the coronavirus coming out, and I mean, talking about the climate during right in the middle of April when people were actually dying, and it was really quite serious. And then Harry comes out of his LA mansion to do a little speech on climate change, and you just think, what? Who are you listening to? Who are you talking to?
Right.
What?
And also this whole compassion thing where they're building communities of compassion. Yeah. They live in a mansion that's got something like 16 bathrooms.
Yeah, 12 bedrooms, I'm sorry. 16 bathrooms.
I mean, what is the point of that?
Tennis court.
How can you even use that many bathrooms?
Yeah, why do they need that? Why do they need that massive, great place?
Right.
But Harry, the Duke of Sussex, Prince of the Realm,
Duke of Netflix, we call him now.
16 lines of the throne, makes a video, vote Joe Biden.
Yeah.
What do you think you're doing?
I know.
They're going to lose these HRHs, I think.
Well, they're going to have to, because even the palace
outrageous.
this time on that whole Joe Biden thing, the palace were very cold on that, weren't they? They are no longer working members of the royal family. I mean, that's the equivalent of getting.
And what is that poll saying?
75%
of Brits want them to be stripped of their royal HRH.
Well, I don't understand how they can still be called the Duke of Duchess of Sussex.
The Queen will be reluctant to do it, but if the pressure is on, she always does what the public tells her.
Yeah. I don't think in a couple of years we'll be talking about them anymore. They won't even be on.
I think
they'll be desperate to be on Plank of the Week. Do you think?
Yes.
Well, I think the next big event in their lives will be them getting divorced, won't it? I mean, you know that's going to happen.
Yeah. I bet that they were going to be divorced by the end of 2020.
Did you?
Yeah. I did.
See, I gave it 5 years. So what? How long have you been married now? 2, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's
also, that's the other great one. I was doing this on the show the other day. Little Archie, the kid with no friends. Yeah. She says he's got no friends, right? Is that surprising? It's not surprising because you haven't got any bloody friends either.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're the only famous people.
They find out who your mum is.
Yeah, but it's not like she's the only famous person in Hollywood when they were living in Hollywood. I mean, there's lots of famous people there. I'm sure there's probably a creche for famous people's children. Apparently, he doesn't have any friends.
Yeah, they did take him away from his cousins though.
He also doesn't know his father, his grandfather. grandfather, rather. He doesn't know any of his uncles. He doesn't, you know.
Well, Harry hasn't got any friends now because Meghan has banned him from seeing any of them.
Right. Maybe that's her thing.
Yeah.
She just makes you only have her as a friend.
Yes.
I'm your only friend.
I think you're
I'm
on
the only friend you'll ever need.
Yeah.
And you
You're
just
on the
gotta
money
go,
there.
Like one of those really scary
We've all had
teenage
one of
girls.
those.
That's why
School.
Donald,
Well, I've certainly
that's why Donald was so right. That,
Yeah.
You know, he's going to need a lot of luck to get through this relationship.
He really is. Right, now, so we're at the point where we've got 9. We need to whittle them all down to 3. So this is where we pick each other's favourites. So why don't you pick your favourite one of Kevin's? He can do his favourite one of me, and then I'll do my favourite one of yours.
Yeah, so mine were Lindsay Hoyle, Andy Burnham and Prince William.
Yeah. Andy Burnham.
I think
would
Andy
be
Burnham's
top.
good, yeah.
Yeah. I quite like Lindsay Hoyle, but I think that was really stupid of him.
Yeah.
And then I can't bring myself to get that angry with William. Just because of Harry, really, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, William does seem like a much less
Come on.
idiotic version.
You got to
No,
kick
but
them.
you only get one.
Don't only kick them
But you've
when
only
they're
got
down.
one.
Kick them when they're up.
I mean, he still
Got
stays
no
in the
idea,
he
have
still
you?
stays in the top 10. It's not like he's not in the list,
no.
you know. So we've got
I
Andy
just
Burnham.
thought it was about time. And
So
also, I guess
from my picks, you can have students, the NHS app, or Meghan and Harry.
you know, I'm trying to be topical. I should go for the... All right, I will. I'm very tempted by Meghan and Harry, but I'm going to go for topicalities reasons for the NHS.
I think that's a good choice.
Yeah.
That's good. So we got NHS app, we got Andy Burnham. So your 3 were?
My 3 were Sadiq Khan, Nicola Sturgeon and Owen Jones.
Oh, that's tempting, isn't it? Sadiq Khan's in quite a lot, so I'm going to narrow it down to the other 2. I think Nicola Sturgeon should be the plank.
Yeah, I like that.
Because she hasn't really ever been plank of the week, I don't think. So I think that would be great.
Yep.
So those are the 3 then. So Nicola Sturgeon, Andy Burnham and the NHS app. Which one of those do you think should win? They're all, then the other 2
like
will
the
then
NHS
still
app,
win.
but I always think it's better to go for a person.
I don't mind. You know, we once had, when we had Maya Tuzi here, whose parents are from
I like
Iran,
that,
he actually nominated the entire Iranian government, which was brilliant. So you can have the app if you want. I mean, it's quite topical.
I think because I don't think he's had enough of a show in Planks of the Week in the past and has often deserved it. Even though it's my nomination, I would go for Andy Burnham.
Yeah, I'm minded to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a stupid idea.
Did he not also back the idea that the hospitality business needs support while saying that they should cut it back to 9
while
o'clock?
making things even worse for him.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I think he's a
All right,
worthy.
well,
Really
I'm
making a
happy
bad
with that. So
situation
Andy
worse.
Burnham's number 1. Should we make the NHS app number 2 then?
Yeah, I'd go for
Nicola's 3.
Yeah.
I think that's
Sounds
fair.
good to me, yeah.
Well, now that we've actually got a proper plank, I could now make the award.
I wonder what that was.
This was actually sent in by a listener, right? Because you might as well
It's
have
a
a
lovely
plank.
award.
It's a lovely award,
It
and we're
really
thinking we
is.
might be able to start, like putting people's
Up there with
names
the
on
World
it.
Cup.
Raving
It is
Yeah.
very similar to the Jules Rimet Trophy.
Yes, it's lovely.
So well done to Plank of the Week, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, the man who thinks it's a great idea to make things worse for the hospitality industry by moving a curfew from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Well done. This has been Plank of the Week. Olivia Utley, thank you very much indeed. Kevin O'Sullivan, we'll see you soon, I'm sure, on Talk Radio. Don't forget, subscribe to YouTube. We'll have another Plank of the Week next week.